Army sent a patrol commanded by a fledgling lieutenant and his advisor.
The 70s killed the classic Western, but not before directors made one last push to save the genre. Some succeeded, most failed commercially, and nearly all got forgotten. These 15 Westerns deserve better than obscurity. Number 15, The Hired Hand.
Whatever it was, what do you mean whatever it was? There was a little white...
Peter Fonda directed The Hired Hand in 1971, his first film behind the camera. He also stars as Harry Collings, a drifter who returns to the wife and daughter he abandoned 7 years earlier. Warren Oates plays his partner Arch, and the two of them have been wandering the West with no particular purpose or destination. What makes The Hired Hand special is how quiet and contemplative it is. There's very little dialogue. Long stretches pass with just Fonda and Oates riding through landscapes, and Fonda lets those silences build meaning. This isn't a Western about action or conflict. It's about regret and whether you can ever go back to a life you abandoned. Fonda shot the film for under $900,000 in New Mexico, using experimental techniques like overlapping dissolves and freeze frames that give everything a dreamlike quality. Vilmos Zsigmond's cinematography is gorgeous, all golden light and hazy horizons that make the West look like fading memories. The film bombed at the box office, making barely $300,000. Universal had no idea how to market a slow, artistic Western with no gunfights and minimal plot. Critics were respectful but not enthusiastic. Audiences expecting Easy Rider on horseback were disappointed by the meditative pacing. Verna Bloom plays Hannah, the abandoned wife, and her performance is remarkable. She lets Harry come back, but only as a hired hand, not as a husband. He has to earn his way back into her life, and the film takes that process seriously. There's no easy reconciliation or Hollywood romance. The ending is tragic and inevitable. Harry leaves again to help his friend, and he's not coming back. Fonda shoots it without sentimentality, just a man making a choice that will cost him everything. The Hired Hand influenced later, contemplative Westerns, but remains criminally underseen. Number 14, Valdez Is Coming. Edwin Sharon directed Valdez Is Coming in 1971, and it's one of Burt Lancaster's most underrated performances. Lancaster plays Bob Valdez, a Mexican-American town constable who accidentally kills an innocent black man after being manipulated by a racist rancher. When Valdez asks the rancher to compensate the dead man's widow, the rancher refuses and has his men torture Valdez. The film becomes a revenge Western, but it's more complicated than that. Valdez isn't seeking revenge for himself. He wants justice for the widow and recognition that what happened was wrong. Lancaster plays him with quiet dignity that explodes into violence only when all other options are exhausted. The script was adapted from an Elmore Leonard novel, and it keeps Leonard's interest in moral complexity and flawed characters. The rancher, played by John Cypher, isn't a cackling villain. He's just a powerful man who refuses to admit fault, and his pride gets people killed. The film was shot in Spain for about $2 million, using the same locations Italian Westerns used. That European aesthetic gives everything a slightly surreal quality that works in the film's favor. Valdez feels like a folk hero, or a myth rather than a realistic character. The action sequences are brutal and unglamorous. Lancaster was 57 during filming, and he looks it. Valdez isn't a young gunslinger, he's an aging lawman pushed too far, and his revenge is methodical rather than flashy. He picks off the rancher's men one by one until only the rancher is left. Valdez Is Coming made about $3 million domestically, enough to recoup its budget, but not enough to be considered a hit. Critics praised Lancaster's performance, but found the film's pacing slow. Modern viewers appreciate its willingness to center a Mexican-American protagonist and take racism seriously as a theme. Number 13, Lawman. Michael Winner directed Lawman in 1971, and it's one of the bleakest westerns of the decade. Burt Lancaster plays Marshal Jared Maddox, a lawman so committed to justice that he's willing to destroy an entire town to arrest 7 men who accidentally killed an old man during a drunken spree. The setup is simple. 7 cowboys from the town of Sabbath get drunk in another town, fire their guns wildly, and accidentally kill a bystander. Maddox rides the Sabbath with warrants for their arrest. The town's leader, Vincent Bronson, played by Lee J. Cobb, tries to negotiate. Maddox refuses. People start dying. What makes Lawman fascinating is that Maddox is technically right. The men broke the law. They killed someone. They should face justice. But his absolute refusal to compromise or show mercy turns him into something inhuman. Winter presents him as a force of nature, unstoppable and pitiless. Robert Ryan plays the local marshal, caught between Maddox and Bronson, and his performance is heartbreaking. He's a decent man, trying to prevent bloodshed, but neither side will listen. Ryan was dying of cancer during filming, and you can see the exhaustion in every scene. The film was shot in Mexico for about $1.6 million. Winter uses the dusty, sun-bleached landscape to emphasize how barren and unforgiving the West could be. There's no beauty here, just heat and violence and death. Lawman made about $2 million domestically, barely breaking even. Critics were divided. Some praised its moral ambiguity. Others found it nihilistic and depressing. The film argues that rigid adherence to law without mercy is as destructive as lawlessness, and not everyone wanted to hear that message. The ending refuses easy answers. Maddox gets his arrests, but the cost is staggering. Multiple people are dead. The town is traumatized. Justice has been served, but it feels hollow and cruel.
And jewelry, and, well, you see, I wasn't...
Number 12, Bad Company.
It's all right. We'll make the trade.
Robert Benton directed Bad Company in 1972, his directorial debut, and it's one of the most authentic depictions of what being young in the Civil War era actually meant. Jeff Bridges plays Jake Rumsey, a clean-cut kid fleeing the Union draft who falls in with a gang of young thieves, led by Drew Barrymore, played by Barry Brown. The film follows these kids as they try to survive by stealing, conning, and occasionally robbing their way west. They're not hardened outlaws. They're teenagers making terrible decisions and suffering the consequences. Some of them die. Others get captured. A few survive through luck, more than skill. What makes Bad Company special is its unromanticized view of frontier life. The kids are constantly hungry, dirty, and scared. They sleep in the open and wake up cold. When they rob someone, they're terrified the whole time. There's no glory or adventure, just desperation and survival. Benton and his co-writer David Newman wanted to make an anti-Vietnam War film disguised as a Western. The draft dodging, the casual violence, the young men dying for causes they don't understand. All of it was meant to reflect what was happening in Southeast Asia. The studio let them make it, because Westerns were still bankable. Gordon Willis shot the film, and his cinematography is deliberately unglamorous. The West looks harsh and uninviting, all over exposed skies and dusty plains. There's none of the Monument Valley beauty that John Ford popularized. This is the West as it actually looked to people struggling through it. Bad Company cost about $3 million and made only about $5 million domestically. Paramount released it with minimal marketing, and it disappeared quickly. Critics who saw it praised the performances and the authentic period detail, but audiences stayed away. The film influenced later westerns about young outlaws, but it remains underseen. Jeff Bridges gives one of his earliest great performances.
Take it easy.
Number 11, Ulzana's Raid.
The Army sent a patrol commanded by a fledgling lieutenant and his advisor. A battle.
Robert Aldrich directed Ulzana's Raid in 1972, and it's one of the most brutal and honest films about the Apache Wars ever made. Burt Lancaster plays McIntosh, an Army scout helping a Green lieutenant track a small band of Apache warriors who've escaped the reservation and are raiding across Arizona territory. The film doesn't pull punches about the violence committed by both sides. The Apache torture and mutilate their victims in ways that are horrifying to watch. The cavalry responds by executing prisoners and burning Apache camps. Aldrich presents this cycle of atrocity without choosing sides or offering easy moral judgments. Lancaster's performance as McIntosh is weary and fatalistic. He's spent his life on the frontier and understands that this conflict has no good solution. The Apache are fighting because they are being slowly destroyed on the reservation. The settlers are defending their families and homes. Both sides are right and wrong simultaneously. Bruce Davison plays the lieutenant, a religious man who believes everyone can be reasoned with if approached with Christian charity. The film systematically destroys that naive optimism. By the end, the lieutenant is broken, having witnessed atrocities that shatter his faith in human goodness. the script by Alan Sharp refuses to romanticize anyone. The Apache aren't noble savages. The cavalry aren't heroes. They're all people trapped in an impossible situation, doing terrible things, because that's what the situation demands. That moral complexity made the film controversial and kept it from finding a wide audience. Ulzana's raid cost about $1.2 million and made back a roughly $2 million domestically. Universal barely promoted it, unsure how to market a Western this dark and ambiguous. Critics respected it, but audiences in 1972 weren't interested in Westerns that complicated the frontier mythology. The film has been rediscovered over the years and is now considered one of Aldrich's best works and one of the most intelligent Westerns about Native American conflict ever made. Number 10. The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. John Huston directed The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean in 1972, and it's one of the strangest Westerns ever made. Paul Newman plays Roy Bean, the self-appointed judge who brought law to West Texas through a combination of showmanship, violence, and obsession with actress Lily Langtry. The film plays fast and loose with history, turning Bean into a mythical figure who's part hero, part con man, part delusional romantic. Newman leans into the comedy and the darkness equally, making Bean simultaneously charming and terrifying. He hangs people for minor infractions while quoting law he's making up on the spot. What makes the film work is how Huston treats the material as both comedy and tragedy. The first half is broad and funny, with Bean establishing his saloon courthouse and dispensing rough justice to anyone who crosses him. The second half gets progressively darker, as Bean realizes the West he knew is disappearing, replaced by corporations and bureaucracy. The supporting cast is incredible. Anthony Perkins, Tab Hunter, Stacy Keach, Roddy McDowell, all playing colorful characters passing through Bean's life. Ava Gardner has a brief role as Lily Langtry herself, Bean's idealized woman who he's never actually met. The film cost about $3.5 million and made about $10 million domestically. It was a modest hit, but critics were divided. Some loved Huston's freewheeling approach to Western mythology. Others found it too jokey and undisciplined. The tonal shifts between comedy and violence alienated viewers expecting a traditional Western. The cinematography by Richard Moore is beautiful, shooting in Arizona and Mexico to capture the harsh beauty of West Texas. Huston uses the landscape to show how small Bean's kingdom actually is, a tiny pocket of civilization in vast emptiness. The ending is melancholy and strange. Bean dies alone, having outlived his era and everyone he cared about. Huston suggests that all frontier legends end this way, forgotten and obsolete. Number 9. Chato's Land. Michael Winner directed Chato's Land in 1972, and it's one of the most vicious revenge westerns ever made. Charles Bronson plays Pardon Chato, an Apache who kills a racist sheriff in self-defense, and then leads a posse of 15 men into the desert, where he picks them off one by one. The film inverts the traditional Western structure. Usually, a posse hunts a criminal. Here, the criminal hunts the posse. Chato knows the desert terrain and uses it to his advantage. He's not interested in escaping. He wants revenge for centuries of Apache suffering, and these 15 white men represent everyone who's ever wronged his people. Jack Palance leads the posse, and his character starts as a gentleman rancher, but devolves into something monstrous as the hunt progresses. The posse rapes Chato's wife, burns his home, and commits atrocities that make them worse than any criminal they were supposedly pursuing. Winner makes it clear these men deserve what's coming. The film was shot in Spain for about $1 million, using barren landscapes that convincingly double for the American Southwest. Winner and cinematographer Robert Painter used the harsh sunlight and rock formations to create an oppressive atmosphere where death feels inevitable. Chato's Land is brutally violent, with graphic scenes of rape and murder that push boundaries for 1972. British censors heavily cut it. American audiences found it too dark. The film made minimal money and was quickly forgotten despite Bronson's star power. What makes the film interesting is how it refuses to make Chato sympathetic beyond his initial self-defense. He becomes a force of vengeance that kills indiscriminately. Winner suggests that violence begets violence until everyone involved is destroyed. There are no heroes, just people trapped in cycles of revenge. The film influenced later revisionist westerns that examined frontier violence from Native American perspectives, though few were as nihilistic or uncompromising as Chato's Land. Number 8. Junior Bonner.
Yeah, I didn't see you around the palace.
Sam Peckinpah directed Junior Bonner in 1972, and it's his gentlest, most nostalgic film. Steve McQueen plays the title character, an aging rodeo rider returning to his Arizona hometown for the 4th of July rodeo. It's the only Peckinpah Western with almost no violence, just characters trying to hold on to a lifestyle that's disappearing. McQueen gives one of his most relaxed, naturalistic performances. Junior Bonner is past his prime, still chasing rodeo glory while his body breaks down. His father, played by Robert Preston, is a dreamer trying to prospect for gold in Australia. His brother, played by Joe Don Baker, has sold out, building trailer parks on their family ranch. The film is about obsolescence and dignity. Junior refuses to retire even though he should. His father refuses to accept reality even though his dreams are destroying him. Peckinpah treats both men with affection and sadness, understanding that their stubbornness is both their greatest strength and their fatal flaw. Peckinpah shot the film in Prescott, Arizona during an actual rodeo, using real cowboys and real events as background. The authenticity shows in every frame. This isn't Hollywood's version of rodeo culture. It's the real thing, unglamorous and brutal on human bodies. The film cost about $1.1 million and made about $3 million domestically. It was a modest success, but audiences expecting Peckinpah violence were confused by the gentle character study. Critics praised it, but Junior Bonner got overshadowed by The Getaway, which Peckinpah made the same year. Lucien Ballard's cinematography captures the American Southwest with beauty and specificity. The film looks sun-baked and worn, reflecting the character's exhaustion. The rodeo sequences are exciting, but also sad, watching middle-aged men punish their bodies for small prize money and fading glory. Junior Bonner is Peckinpah's most underrated film, proof he could make intimate character studies as well as violent epics. Number 7. The Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid. Philip Kaufman directed The Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid in 1972, and it's one of the most unconventional Jesse James films ever made. Cliff Robertson plays Cole Younger with manic energy, and Robert Duvall plays Jesse James as a religious fanatic who believes God wants him to rob banks. The film depicts the James Younger gang's disastrous attempt to rob the First National Bank of Northfield, Minnesota in 1876. Everything goes wrong. The townspeople fight back. Gang members are killed or captured. Jesse and Frank escape, but barely. It's the beginning of the end for the famous outlaw gang. What makes Kaufman's film fascinating is how it portrays the outlaws as delusional anachronisms. They think they are Confederate heroes continuing the war by robbing Yankee banks. In reality, they're just criminals the world has passed by. The robbery fails because Northfield isn't a lawless frontier town. It's a civilized community that refuses to be victimized. The film has a strange, almost comedic energy that makes it feel modern and subversive. Kaufman uses anachronistic touches like a baseball game, where Cole Younger insults the umpire. The gang rides to Northfield wearing matching linen dusters that make them look like a religious cult. Nothing feels traditional or reverential. Bruce Surtees shot the film using techniques that make it look rough and immediate. The robbery sequence is chaotic and confusing, with townspeople shooting from windows and gang members panicking. There's no choreographed gunfight, just terror and improvisation. The Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid cost about $1 million and made only about $500,000 domestically. Universal released it with almost no marketing. Critics were intrigued, but audiences ignored it. The film was too weird, too revisionist, too willing to mock Western mythology. Kaufman went on to make The Right Stuff and other acclaimed films, but this early Western shows his willingness to challenge genre conventions. Number 6, The Spikes Gang.
No, not a one.
Money don't even know where.
Richard Fleischer directed The Spikes Gang in 1974, and it's one of the saddest westerns about young people being destroyed by violence they don't understand. Gary Grimes, Ron Howard, and Charlie Martin Smith play 3 farm boys who rescue wounded outlaw Lee Marvin and decide to become outlaws themselves. The film shows how quickly innocence gets corrupted on the frontier. The boys start by stealing small things, then graduate to bank robbery. They're terrible at it. People die, the boys get separated, traumatized, and eventually killed. Marvin's character watches them self-destruct and can't stop it. What makes the Spikes gang brutal is how young and naive the boys are. Ron Howard was 19 during filming, playing a teenager excited by the idea of being an outlaw. The film systematically destroys that excitement, showing robbery is terrifying and violence is ugly. By the end, the boys just want to go home, but it's too late. Fleischer shot the film in Spain for about $2 million. The European locations give everything a slightly off feeling that works thematically. These boys are in a world they don't understand, and the alien landscape emphasizes their displacement. Lee Marvin's performance is fantastic. He plays an outlaw who knows exactly what these boys are getting into and tries to warn them, but they won't listen. He's seen too many young men die the same way, and he's powerless to prevent another tragedy. The film made about $3 million domestically, a modest return. United Artists marketed it as a family-friendly Western because of Ron Howard's Happy Days fame, which was completely wrong. Parents took their kids to see it and were horrified by the violence and the downbeat ending. The Spikes gang deserves rediscovery as one of the most honest films about how the frontier consumed young people who had no business being there. Number 5. Bite the Bullet. Richard Brooks wrote and directed Bite the Bullet in 1975. And it's the most ambitious Western about endurance and obsession ever made. The film follows contestants in a 700-mile horse race across the desert in 1906, with a $10,000 prize for whoever survives to the finish. Gene Hackman and James Coburn play aging cowboys entering the race for different reasons. Candice Bergen plays a former prostitute trying to prove herself in a male-dominated world. Ben Johnson plays an old cowboy riding because it's all he knows how to do. The race destroys most of them physically and psychologically. What makes Bite the Bullet special is how seriously it takes the physical toll of riding a horse 700 miles in a week. People fall off from exhaustion. Horses go lame and have to be shot. Riders develop infections and injuries that would be fatal without medical care. The film shows endurance as a form of madness. Brooks shot the film on location across Nevada and New Mexico using real horses and real landscapes. The race sequences are grueling to watch because they are filmed with such brutal realism. You feel every mile, every fall, every moment of suffering. The film cost about $4 million and made about $12 million domestically. It was a modest hit, helped by the star power of Hackman and Coburn. Critics praised the cinematography and the performances, but found the pacing slow. The film takes its time because endurance races take time. Alex North's score is beautiful and mournful, understanding that this race represents the death of the Old West. Automobiles are replacing horses. The frontier is closed. These riders are engaging in a pointless display of obsolete skills, and the film treats their obsession with both respect and sadness. Bite the Bullet deserves recognition as one of the most physically authentic Westerns ever made and a meditation on obsolescence that still resonates. Number 4. The Culpepper Cattle Company. Dick Richards directed The Culpepper Cattle Company in 1972, and it's the most unglamorous, realistic cattle drive Western ever made. Gary Grimes plays Ben Mockridge, a 16-year-old who talks his way into joining a cattle drive from Texas to Colorado. He thinks it's going to be an adventure. Instead, it's months of brutal labor, casual violence, and moral compromises that destroy his innocence. The film shows exactly what cattle drives actually entailed. Men work 18-hour days in the saddle. They sleep on the ground in the rain. They eat terrible food. They go weeks without bathing. When violence happens, it's sudden and ugly. Someone steals cattle, they hang him. No trial, no debate. Just frontier justice executed and forgotten. Billy Greenbush plays Frank Culpepper, the trail boss, and his performance is remarkable. Culpepper isn't a hero or a father figure. He's a businessman moving cattle from one place to another as efficiently as possible. When that efficiency requires violence, he doesn't hesitate. When it requires abandoning injured men, he does that too. What makes the Culpepper Cattle Company special is how it influenced later realistic westerns. The script was written by Eric Berkovici and Gregory Prentice, based on extensive research into actual trail drives. They consulted historical accounts and eyewitness testimonies to get details right. The clothing, the equipment, the language, all of it was researched meticulously. The film was shot in Mexico and the American Southwest for about $1 million. Richards, a cinematographer making his directorial debut, understood how to use natural light and real locations to create authenticity. The cattle drive sequences look exactly like period photographs brought to life. 20th Century Fox released the Culpepper Cattle Company in April 1972. And it bombed. It made maybe $2 million domestically, barely covering its costs. Critics who saw it praised the realism, but audiences expecting a traditional Western stayed away. The pacing was too slow, the violence too casual, the morality too ambiguous. The film has developed a cult following among Western enthusiasts and historians who appreciate its commitment to showing frontier life without romance or mythology. Larry McMurtry cited it as an influence when writing Lonesome Dove, praising its honest depiction of trail drive hardships. The film proved you could make a Western that was both entertaining and historically accurate, even if audiences in 1972 weren't ready for it. Number 3, Man in the Wilderness. Richard Sarafian directed Man in the Wilderness in 1971, and it's basically an early version of The Revenant. Richard Harris plays Zachary Bass, a fur trapper mauled by a bear and left for dead by his expedition. He survives and crawls across hundreds of miles of wilderness to catch up with the men who abandoned him, driven by rage and the need to see his young son again. The film is brutal and uncompromising in its depiction of survival. Bass is torn apart by the bear in a scene that's shockingly violent for 1971. He drags himself through rivers, eats raw meat, cauterizes his wounds with burning wood. Harris committed fully to the physical performance, losing weight and subjecting himself to genuinely harsh conditions during filming. What separates Man in the Wilderness from pure revenge western is the psychological dimension. Bass has flashbacks to his past, his failed marriage, his abandonment of his son. The journey through the wilderness becomes a form of purgatory where he confronts what kind of man he's been. By the time he catches up with the expedition, revenge isn't what he wants anymore. John Huston plays Captain Henry, the expedition leader who made the cold calculation to leave Bass behind. Huston brings gravitas and moral complexity to the role. Henry isn't a villain. He's a pragmatist who chose the survival of many over the probable death of one man. The film doesn't judge him harshly for that decision. The film was shot in Spain, standing in for the American wilderness for about $2 million. Sarafian used the Spanish landscape brilliantly, finding locations that looked convincingly like the untamed frontier. The bear attack was filmed using a man in a bear suit and careful editing, and it's far more effective than it has any right to be. Man in the Wilderness made about $4 million domestically, a modest profit. Warner Brothers released it with minimal marketing, unsure how to sell a survival film with long stretches of no dialogue. Critics were respectful, but not enthusiastic. The film was too slow and contemplative for action audiences, too violent for art house crowds. The score by Johnny Harris is unconventional and haunting, using experimental sounds and dissonant strings to create unease. Combined with Jerry Fisher's cinematography, the film creates an atmosphere of isolation and desperation that few westerns have matched. Bass isn't just fighting the wilderness, he's fighting his own nature, trying to become something better than the violent man he's always been. Number 2, Buck and the Preacher. Sidney Poitier directed Buck and the Preacher in 1972, his directorial debut, and it's one of the few westerns centered entirely on black characters navigating the post-Civil War frontier. Poitier plays Buck, a former Union soldier working as a wagon master, guiding freed slaves to homesteads out west. Harry Belafonte plays the Preacher, a con man who joins Buck's wagon train while running from his own troubles. The film addresses something most westerns ignore completely. After the Civil War, thousands of black Americans moved west, seeking land and freedom promised by the Homestead Act. They faced violence from night riders, essentially the Ku Klux Klan operating on the frontier, who were paid by Southern plantation owners to terrorize freed slaves and force them to return south. What makes Buck and the Preacher important is how it centers black agency and resistance. Buck isn't asking white people for help or waiting for salvation. He's actively fighting back against the Night Riders with intelligence and violence when necessary. The film shows freed slaves as people building their own futures, not as victims waiting to be rescued. The chemistry between Poitier and Belafonte is fantastic. Buck is serious and responsible, carrying the weight of protecting his people. The Preacher is slippery and funny, using charm and deception to survive. Together, they make an unlikely but effective team, and their friendship develops naturally over the course of the film. The film also depicts relationships with Native Americans in a way most Westerns never attempted. Buck forms an alliance with a Kiowa tribe, recognizing their shared experience of being pushed off land by white settlers. That alliance proves crucial when the Night Riders attack. The film suggests coalitions between oppressed groups were possible and necessary. Columbia Pictures gave Poitier a $3 million budget, and he shot the film in Mexico and California. The production values are solid, with convincing period detail and well-staged action sequences. Poitier proves himself a capable director, handling both intimate character moments and large-scale action effectively. Buck and the Preacher made over $4 million domestically, a respectable return. Critics praised it as an important corrective to Hollywood's erasure of black frontier history. But the film struggled to find wide distribution in certain markets, particularly the South, where theater owners refused to book it. The film influenced later black westerns and remains one of the most important films about the black experience in the American West. It's entertaining as an action western while also being historically significant for centering stories Hollywood had ignored for decades. Number 1. The Shootist.
Ma?
You can tell your mother that tuckered-out old man needs...
Don Siegel directed The Shootist in 1976, and it's John Wayne's final film and his greatest performance. Wayne plays J.B. Brooks, an aging gunfighter dying of cancer who comes to Carson City to die in peace. Instead, he's hounded by reporters, lawmen, and young gunslingers, all wanting to claim they killed the legendary John Bernard Brooks. The film is a meditation on mortality, legacy, and obsolescence. Brooks is dying in 1901, watching the Wild West transform into something modern and unfamiliar. Automobiles are replacing horses. Electricity is replacing gas lamps. The kind of man Brooks was, the violent skills that made him legendary, are no longer needed or wanted. Wayne was dying of cancer in real life during filming, and he knew it. That knowledge infuses every scene with weight and poignancy. When Brooks talks about pain and indignity and wanting to die on his own terms, you're watching John Wayne confront his own mortality on screen. It's impossible to separate the character from the actor. Lauren Bacall plays the widow who runs the boarding house where Brooks takes a room. Their scenes together are tender and sad, two people at the end of their lives finding brief connection. Ron Howard plays her son, a teenager who idolizes Brooks and wants to learn gunfighting. The film is partly about Brooks trying to destroy that idolization, to make the kid understand violence isn't romantic or heroic. James Stewart, Richard Boone, and Hugh O'Brien all appear in supporting roles, old Western stars gathering for Wayne's farewell. The final shootout in a saloon is staged like a last stand, Brooks choosing to die on his feet with a gun in his hand rather than waste away in bed. It's tragic and inevitable and somehow perfect. Siegel shot the film in Nevada for about $5 million, using Carson City locations that still retain period architecture. The cinematography by Bruce Surtees is beautiful and melancholy, bathing everything in warm light that feels like a sunset, like something ending. The Shootist made about $13 million domestically, a solid hit and a fitting conclusion to Wayne's career. He died 3 years later in 1979, and this film stands as his epitaph. Critics recognized immediately that Wayne was giving his greatest performance, playing against his tough guy image to show vulnerability and fear. The film influenced every subsequent Western about aging gunslingers confronting obsolescence. It's honest about violence in ways Wayne's earlier films never were, showing it as something that destroys the men who live by it. Brooks gets his chosen death, but the film makes clear it's a tragedy, not a triumph. The West he helped build has moved on without him, and all that's left is a painful exit. The 70s Westerns that worked understood the genre was dying and used that death as subject matter. These films stripped away mythology and showed the frontier honestly, knowing audiences might not want honesty. Most failed commercially, but succeeded artistically. That's why they're worth remembering 50 years later.